How does a disaster happen in plain sight? Not with a storm, not with fire, not with a collision at sea. Just a routine school trip, a calm morning crossing, a ferry built for journeys so common they feel impossible to fear. April 16th, 2014. The passenger ferry Sewol sails toward Jeju. On board are hundreds of students. Passengers are told to remain where they are as the ship begins to lean. For hours, the ferry does not disappear. It stays visible while escape becomes impossible. This is the story of the MV Sewol. The Sewol is a 6,800-ton passenger ferry running a familiar route, Incheon to Jeju. A crossing repeated so often it feels mechanical, predictable, safe. On board are 476 people. More than 300 are high school students traveling together on a school trip. Phones out, laughter in corridors. Breakfast trays half finished. Morning light through cabin windows. Nothing suggests danger. Nothing interrupts routine. Below them, the vehicle deck is packed with trucks, containers, freight, far heavier than passengers ever see. The ship had been modified to carry more cargo and more people. That change raises the vessel's center of gravity, quietly reducing the margin between balance and loss. The risk is structural, invisible, built into the design. Outside, the sea is calm. The sky is clear. The ferry moves normally. And normal is what makes the coming failure almost impossible to recognize. 8:48 am. Automatic tracking later records an abrupt turn to starboard. Not gradual, not routine, sharp enough to destabilize the load below. Investigators will conclude the steering system malfunctions internally. A failed component inside the steering gear forces an uncontrolled command. The ship obeys instantly. Below decks, the cargo responds differently. The ferry is carrying far more weight than regulations permit, and much of it is poorly secured. When the Sewol turns, the freight slides, metal against metal, containers shifting, mass relocating sideways in one violent movement. The center of gravity follows the cargo. The ship begins to heel. At first, the angle is small. Passengers feel it like a hard maneuver. Some laugh. Some race against walls. No alarm sounds. Announcements instruct everyone to remain inside cabins. Stay put. Do not move. Wait for further instructions. The list deepens. Furniture drifts. Loose objects gather against one wall. Doors resist their hinges. Glass trembles in frames. The ferry does not correct. It continues to lean. Water reaches openings never meant to meet the sea. Flooding begins slowly, not dramatic, not cinematic, just a steady invasion through geometry. Minutes pass without recovery. From outside, the vessel still appears intact. Inside, walking becomes climbing. Corridors tilt. Stairwells turn vertical. Balance disappears from the environment. Students message parents. Photos are taken. Voices stay calm because the ship is still floating. Crew instructions repeat. The message does not change. Remain where you are. Time stretches inside the hull. The angle increases slowly, but never stops. The Sewol is committing to a direction it cannot reverse. And unlike a storm disaster, this one stretches. The ship does not vanish, it transforms. A massive structure gradually surrendering to angle and weight. Passengers wait for authority to break the silence. The ferry remains visible. Rescue feels close, but stability is already gone. The disaster is no longer approaching. It has arrived, and it is unfolding in slow motion. When a ship capsizes slowly, confusion lasts longer than fear. Gravity doesn't snap, it migrates. Floors tilt, walls become ladders, ceilings become unreachable. Inside the Sewol, orientation dissolves piece by piece. Students climb furniture to stay level. Hands grip rails that were never meant to be vertical. Announcements fade, then stop. In their place is the sound of water touching surfaces that should be dry. Not a crash, a creeping. A line rising across rooms that were built for routine travel. Phones glow in the dim. Messages continue. We are still inside. It's getting worse. Please hurry. We are waiting. The ship remains above water long enough to promise rescue. From outside, it looks survivable, stable enough to wait. From inside, space is narrowing. Doors resist pressure. Windows tilt toward the sea. Air pockets shrink. Light bends sideways. Minutes compress into decisions no one was trained to make. Some climb, some wait, some believe instructions will return. Crew voices no longer guide them. Authority becomes memory. Only the angle remains. The ferry does not collapse, it fills. Water advances with the patience of weight. Air turns damp, sound turns heavy, movement becomes effort. Every breath measures distance to the ceiling, and in enclosed compartments, time becomes physical. A ceiling lowering, a wall advancing, a silence growing heavier. Breath shortens, light disappears in stages, cold replaces noise. The Sewol stays visible while hope drains through geometry. The disaster is quiet, not because nothing is happening, but because everything is happening slowly enough to understand it, and too slowly to escape. Outside, the horizon is calm. Inside, space is running out. The ship holds its shape, but not its future, and the silence outlasts every instruction. When the Sewol finally disappears, the sea closes quietly. There is no final crash, no spectacle, only absence where a ship remained visible for hours. Rescue turns into counting, counting turns into names. Names turn into rooms that will never be entered again. Official records settle around 304 lives lost, most of them students. On the surface, help arrives. Fishing boats and private vessels reach the scene. Helicopters hover. Official coordination lags behind the moment. The ship is still there, and that visibility creates a dangerous illusion that time is still available. Investigators reconstruct the chain. A ferry modified to carry more, raising the center of gravity. A stability margin already thin. Cargo loaded far past legal limits. Freight left unsecured on a flat deck. When the ship turned, that mass slid to one side, dragging balance with it. Ballast reduced, weight distributed wrong, the hull less able to recover. Then the trigger, a steering system fault, an abrupt starboard turn. The moment the calculations stopped mattering. After the list begins, the human failure takes over. Announcements tell passengers to stay put. Evacuation is delayed. Command fragments. The captain leaves the vessel early while many remain inside. Courts later call it dereliction of duty. He is sentenced to life. Crew members and company officials are prosecuted and convicted. But the findings don't stop at people. They describe a culture where overloading was routine, where shortcuts became normal, where inspections failed to interrupt habit, and where safety existed on paper more than in practice. The Sewol becomes evidence of a disaster built in advance, structure weakened, rules bent, warnings absorbed, until catastrophe required no storm, only motion, and the quiet certainty that the system would hold. The disaster forces national scrutiny, ferry regulations tighten, cargo enforcement strengthens, inspection culture is rewritten under public demand. It didn't. Some ship disasters are violent. They announce themselves with force. The Sewol is remembered for the opposite reason. It gave time to message parents, time to believe rescue was already coming, time to trust that authority understood the situation, time to assume that delay meant safety, and that time became part of the tragedy. Because catastrophe did not arrive as an explosion, it arrived as a slope, a gradual change that people assumed would reverse, a warning stretched long enough to feel survivable. Inside the ferry, the world tilted slowly enough to feel temporary, a problem to endure, not an ending to escape. Outside, the ship remained visible long enough to look recoverable, a vessel still present against the horizon. Hope stretched to match that image, the assumption that systems protect, the assumption that instructions are safety, the assumption that visibility means survival. But systems are made of decisions, and decisions are made by people, and people fail quietly long before structures do. A vessel can remain in sight and still disappear. A disaster can unfold without noise and still take everything. By the next morning, the water is calm, the sky unchanged, the route still there. But a country wakes to a silence that does not close, because now it knows. A ship does not need to vanish instantly to be lost. Sometimes it leans slowly enough for belief to outlast escape. Sometimes the wait is the catastrophe. And when certainty fades by degrees, the end arrives without a moment to mark it. Between what was and what remains, there lies the liminal.